Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining my little seminar on the magic of mobility. And today we're going to go over our 5-step process for helping people with mobility challenges or even loss of efficiency. So, as you can see, we outlined on our webpage the 5 steps, and I just wanted to go over in a little more detail how they're done. And I'm going to open up my Facebook page too, just in case anybody has any questions. Oh, there we go. Okay, so where were we? So the first step when anybody has an issue is to really kind of address the complaint and get a history. Understanding, where the pain is, how does it hurt, and particularly when does it hurt, is really important because you have to recognize patterns of injuries. Which movements create pain? Where is the pain? Describe the pain. All pain is not the same. Nerve pain has certain types of profiles where it radiates through a different part of your body. Muscle pain is usually more focused. Things like a dull ache versus throbbing pain. All these different descriptions can help you focus in on what might be the source. And really finding the source of the problem is what mobility training is all about. And so once we get through number one, we want to do number two. And number two is a good deal of the challenge in doing it correctly. So when somebody has, let's say they have pain in their knee, right? And so once I find a description of that kind of pain, and maybe they tell me it hurts with like some patterns of exercise, I'm looking for something with like limited movement, right? Or an exercise that causes pain, or some place you have less strength, or some place that you have less control. So I might check a lunge pattern, I might check their jump, I might check their squat. And I'm going to check 8 or 10 different exercises and see which exercises have reduced motion or pain or less strength. Some will have it, some won't. And then I create a mapping essentially of the ones that have it, and I see, well, if deadlifts are okay, squats are not, lunges are not, well, what's different about deadlifts that they're okay, right? And so you create this mapping of exercise that are okay and not okay, whether it's motion or pain, and from there you can start to reduce variables essentially. Let's say the problem is lack of external rotation in their hip, right? Well, for the deadlift, it's not necessary, but for lunges, you need rotational control, and for squats, you need rotational mobility. So that might be the issue in that case, right? And so once we're focused in, okay, so there's knee pain, I want to look as a mobility practitioner up and down the chain. I want to look at the tibia area and the calves, even all the way down the feet. That's 2 chains away. Similarly, I want to go up to the hip and up to the core, right? The pain really is most likely close to the injury, but it could be as much as 2, even sometimes 3 steps away. Thinking about joints as steps, right? You have your foot, your shin, and your knee. That's 3, right? Foot is 1, shin is 2, knee is 3. The femur is 4, right? And then the femur that control is in the hip, right? And you just go up the chain and you look at different segments of the body that way. So I want to check patterns that may be related to weakness. So if it was lack of external rotation, as soon as I look up the chain, I'm going to look for hip abduction, hip adduction, hip internal rotation, hip external rotation, and boom. Hip external rotation is limited. I know that could be the problem, not necessarily, but it could be the problem with why their squat and their lunge hurts, right? Or their lunge is unstable. So what are we going to do then? Well, we're going to treat it, right? We're going to do maybe some functional range conditioning to improve stability. We might do some Graston or some mobility WOD work to try to loosen up that external rotation and get them more. I want to check the left side too to make sure the left side also has good rotation. And once I do that mobility, I want to retest it, and that takes us to 5, right? I want to retest to see does it increase. How you treat it, we didn't talk about this point here. how you treat it, right? If it is weak, you want to do strengthening exercises. If it's tight, you want to stretch it or mobilize it. Generally, you can't stretch a muscle if it's all knotted up, so then you do mobility and then you might stretch it. But once we've done the mobility on it, we retest it. Did it improve or did it get worse? If the functional range conditioning and Kinstretch type work or the yoga hip openers worked, maybe I want to do some rock taping to help get the external rotation more in the person's pattern. And if that decreases their pain or it increases their range of motion or creates more control, the squat works better, looks better, right? I know that the problem is likely external rotation. This little system here is the same system I use to treat everybody. It works on all injuries as long as you can kind of go through the pattern and find what is causing the issue. When you're looking at problems, the real challenge, I think, for most people is 3. 3 is generally the hardest because you have to look at lateral aspects, you have to look at posterior aspects. You can miss the weakness or the pain very easily. And maybe you can't find, in this example, why a person's neck hurts because you didn't think to check the tricep as being super weak, right? And if you don't think to check it, you'll miss that problem. And anything else you do to help with the neck, loosen up the neck and stretch the neck, it just comes back. It comes back because the neck is the victim, not the cause. We know certain parts of the body are generally victims of bad mobility, right? Things like knees, lower back, elbows are big examples of areas that generally don't have a lot of muscle around them, but when the underlying support beams, if you would, such as the hips, generally go with the knees. Ankle pain is generally related to calf pain or calf tightness or the anterior tibialis weakness, right? Goes to the ankles. So if these muscles are weak or they're not firing or they're imbalanced front to back, there's usually pain in a certain area joint and you know to look for it. When you get into areas of shoulders, it can be a little more tricky because there's more muscles in play. It could be anything in the chest, it could be anything in the back, it could be related to any of the muscles in the arms. And so you just track it through and find your source. Ida Graston is famous for saying, where you think it is, it ain't. And most people, if their shoulder hurts, they're focused on the anterior aspect of the deltoid, and that's where I'm looking and focused, but they don't look other places. That said, once you find a good weakness, you want to, when you hear the hoof beats, think about horses, not zebras. Most of the time when you find a weakness that is related to the area, it usually is that one. Challenges certainly occur when there's more than one problem. Sometimes people have a pre-existing injury and they have a new one, and then you have 2 problems. And so that can be more challenging to get through. I find more often than not, though, maybe 80-90%, it's usually one area. That area doesn't cause the person any pain. The pain is referred someplace else as real pain, but they feel it someplace else and they have no idea that they have no strength there because they don't use the muscle, doesn't cause any pain. So then you strengthen it in that case, or maybe the bicep's too tight if it's a tricep issue, and you do that with 4. You retest and boom, the anterior shoulder has less pain. And that is really the whole system for treating people. Everything else is just the kind of how well you can implement the exercise. Let me see if we have any questions. I have some viewers, but no questions. If anybody does have any questions on this presentation and would like more detail or want to come in, you know where to reach us at standardstillfitness.com. I do thank you for joining us for this. It's been great working with all of you. Thank you so much.